For February, NEDA's blog, The Legal Advocate, has been focusing on the topic of diversity in the courtroom in honor of Black History Month. Our guest today is Judge Alfred Harrell. Judge Harrell was appointed to Denver's County Court back in 1985, and this is where he still serves today with distinction. Prior to that, he was a trial attorney for 13 years. Throughout his career, Judge Harrell has worked extensively with the American Inns of Court within Colorado, and he has been championing for multiracial and gender-neutral memberships. Additionally, he has also served as vice president of the Denver Bar Association. He was the treasurer for the Sam Carey Bar Association, and he was the first vice president of the Colorado Lawyers Health Program. He's also made it a priority to be a mentor and a role model to others, from the elementary school level up through the collegiate level and even on into the professional realm. Because of his community service, he has been recognized with awards from the University of Colorado, the Denver Bar Association, the Colorado Bar Association, the Women's Bar Association of Colorado, and the Asian American Bar Association of Colorado. He's also been recognized with awards from the Denver Bar Association, the American Board of Trial Advocates, and the Colorado Judicial Institute for their awards on judicial excellence. Judge Harrell, welcome to Studio 71, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Travis. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'd like to ask you, for the first question today, if you could give us a bit of a historical viewpoint on how you feel the legal profession has changed, or not, over the 40 years that you've been in this career.
I hear two questions, so I'll answer them both. I think that the profession has changed in the sense that 1972, when I first started to practice law, there weren't very many African-American lawyers. There weren't very many Hispanic lawyers. There certainly were not bar associations such as the Hispanic Bar Association or the African-American Bar Association. Neither one was named when they came into existence. I think the African-American Bar Association was named after one of the first African-American lawyers in Colorado, a man by the name of Sam Carey. The Hispanic Bar Association, its first name was the Chicano Bar Association. And probably for the audience, especially the younger audience, they might not have heard that term before, Chicano. Now it's either Hispanic or Latino. So you can see how we've evolved. Right. But that's almost like, as a child, I was first I was a Negro, then I was colored, and then I became an Afro-American, and now I'm an African-American. So, you know, those things have changed, how people refer to other people. The profession has changed as well. But there was only the Colorado and the Denver Bar Association. Most of the members of the bar associations, the major bar associations, represented the population, and most of them were Caucasian. There weren't a lot of women in the bar association, and very few people of color. In fact, I think only maybe three that I can think of. Older lawyers, Charlie Vigil, one of the first Hispanic lawyers of some repute in this community, Judge James Flanagan, who was the first African-American judge appointed to both the county and later the district court. Those were the only folks that I can remember who were members of the major bar associations. And as I said before, there were no other bar associations. 1972, a group of us African-American lawyers got together and created a minority bar association, the Sam Carey Bar Association. We felt that by banding together, we could help one another excel in the profession. We didn't feel that we were welcome and would get the kind of mentoring that we needed to be successful. And there were pluses and minuses. Actually, looking back now, I think the community welcomed us. They didn't realize that maybe African American lawyers weren't treated the same as other lawyers. You know, I don't think that's in the forefront of anyone's consciousness about who's doing what to whom and why and how. This community, Colorado, Denver specifically, it was an extraordinary community. I grew up in the civil rights era, and as a lot of us who grew up here in Denver who were African American are fond of saying, we think that the civil rights movement passed us by. And I say that because we weren't exposed to the kind of human degradation that history indicates happened in the 60s, the 50s, and the 40s. We didn't experience that to that level here in Colorado. So we were kind of oblivious to the serious issues that were confronting the nation at that time. Of course, now I can look back and realize, yeah, we were in a fight for civil rights and equality of opportunity. But it permeated all aspects of society, not just the legal profession, but all aspects of society. So from 1972 to 2012, we've all grown. We've all grown. You look at our legal profession in Colorado at least, and I can only speak from my own experience. Gays and lesbians are members of our highest courts. People of color sit on the highest courts in the state, federal and state courts. From top to bottom, I think that we represent the community. Asian Americans, all of us are now members of a very thriving and successful legal community. So in that sense, things have changed on a positive level. Now, if I can answer the other part, how have things not changed? Well, those in power have always been in power. I mean, I think that, and I hope this doesn't sound cynical, but even though there has been high achievement by people of color and different other folks, as I referred to, the gay and lesbian community, not very many of us are in the center of power. That is still evolving. But we are nibbling on the edges and becoming more a part of the total community. And I think primarily because of technology. I mean, our world has just shrunk so that, you know, you don't know who you're talking to. People who have brown skin, you may refer to as an African American, and they'll tell you right away, no, I'm Somalian, or I'm Ethiopian. Right. And you're like, what? All of a sudden, these people have their own communities. They're within the society. My bailiff called someone the other day and my bailiff is a Mexican American, and she was telling the woman on the other end of the phone that that if she brought her Mexican passport, and the lady said, just because I have a Hispanic name doesn't mean that I'm Mexican. I'm Colombian. And like, whoa, so you don't know who you're talking to anymore. Right. And that's because we have shrunk so. And where it used to be one or two different people in a community, now there's so many different people that I think, those of us who have decided that maybe we want to segregate ourselves, want to have our own party, so to speak, we can't. That attitude is not going to be successful. Law firms need to hire people from every aspect of society because their clients are from every aspect of society. So if you don't hire African Americans, if you don't hire gay and lesbians, you are foreclosing yourself from possibly an economic advantage.
Absolutely.
So why would you do that? Why would you do that? One of my very closest friends recently was awarded the Award of Merit, and his name is Ben Eisenberg. And Ben talks about when he first came here, how there were no Jews in any of the major law firms in Colorado. And Ben talked about his travails and talked about his successes. But, you know, as he recognized and related to this large audience, the times have changed. And, you know, there are Jewish law firms. I think one of the most prominent law firm in Colorado, Farber and Brownstein, Hyatt, major players. People who, if I want to go to Washington, they say, well, let me make sure that you visit the White House. And I pick up the phone and can call and make sure that I get a visit in the White House. I mean, it's amazing. It is. It's fantastic. But that's not the way it was in 1972 when I started. So again, in a positive way, it has changed. But the other things are going to take time. I think more and more when the people in power see that it's necessary to interface with the world in order to maintain their position of success, that you'll see more integration.
So I want to divert slightly, and I want to ask, at what point in your life did you know that you wanted to be a trial lawyer or then to become a judge?
Oh my goodness gracious. I have one story I want to tell you that I think exemplifies why. I was raised by a stepfather, and he married my mother when I was 7, right out of law school. This was a man, his name was Irving Andrews. Great Jewish name, right, Irving? He wasn't Jewish. About my color, African American. He was #1 in his class. He left Colorado College. It's a private liberal arts school. After his junior year, he was junior Phi Beta Kappa, started the University of Denver Law School. Finished both in a total of 5 years. He was at the top of his class, and in those days, they actually ranked you as you took the bar examination. And he was #1 on the bar.
Oh, wow.
So here's a guy fresh out of World War II. It was because of the GI Bill and the largesse of some wonderful people in his life, who weren't, by the way, all African Americans. They were Caucasians and Jews who were very supportive of my father. Without those folks, I don't think he would have been the success that he was. But I'll get back to that later. But what happened was, there was a guy by the name of Sonny Lawson, for whom a park is named in Denver, Colorado, who was very politically astute, African-American gentleman, very active, and when the white power structure needed political answers answered in terms of could they get the support of the black community, what is it the black community wants, et cetera, I would always go to this guy, Sonny Lawson. Sonny Lawson was the go-to guy politically. So if you wanted a job downtown, ask Sonny Lawson. And Sonny Lawson would make the connection. So my father wanted to practice law. So he put in an application to the city attorney's office. And Sonny Lawson arranged for an interview with the city attorney. It's a very powerful position, by the way. The whole time that my father was interviewed, the city attorney turned his back to my father and looked out the window.
Oh, wow.
And did not look at him the entire time. 5 minutes he interviewed my father. My father relates that story and says it was the most humiliating moment in his life. But it also defined his life as a lawyer at that point. He realized that if he was going to practice law in Colorado, he was going to have to put out his own shingle. There was an African-American doctor who told him, he said, Irving, you can rent from me rent-free. I'll give you an office in my building, the Hawkins building, down on 23rd and Welton for a year. He started to practice law. There was a Jewish couple, Marilyn and Hal Meadoff, who said, Irving, why don't you come and practice with us? A lot of people don't know that was probably the first integrated law firm in the history of Colorado. And that was back in 1951, 52.
Okay.
The three of them got together. Marilyn was an engineer and a lawyer.
Okay.
First in her class, University of Colorado, School of Engineering, civil engineer. She was one of the top students in law school. Hal was kind of a mediocre student. But the three of them got together, and my father started his practice. Because they had differing objectives. Marilyn and Hal were more on the transactional side,
Okay.
real estate, that kind of thing. My dad had always wanted to be a trial lawyer. Paul Robeson was his hero. Clarence Darrow was another one, and he wanted to actually be in the forefront of battle. And so when he would tell us about why it was that he started doing what he did and how he did it, immediately, I knew I wanted to be like my dad. Here was a man who came in, married a woman who had 2 kids, was divorced. Of course, people said about my mother she was the most beautiful woman in Denver at the time. I think that probably helped. But took those kids, and in those days, in the 50s, to be a divorced woman was kind of a point of shame. I mean, you know, that may sound foreign to the audience now. Really? Divorce? And to have 2 children as well? But for this man to come in and take over this family and be the father that we no longer had, I mean, you can imagine the impact. So from age 7 on, I knew I wanted to be a trial lawyer like my dad.